Welcome back, Warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank y'all so much for joining me here today. Today, I have got something so wonderful. It is Michael Eric Dyson, you know, the race baiter. And then Judge Joe Brown. Wow, you are not going to want to miss 1 minute. Watch it to the end. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Now, let's get into it.
That is set as well is to open ourselves to a white supremacist demagogue with crypto-fascist impulses and neo-authoritarian impulses needs to be held in check. So even though he's an old white man that folks say is, you know, on the downswing, I disagree with that. He's an old white man doing what he does. We got Judge Joe Brown up here, 75 years old, and sprightly as anybody up in this room. So I say I love older people doing their thing. Let's keep this man in office a little bit longer to see what he's gonna do.
Your thoughts? Let's put it this way. First off, I was a lifelong Democrat. Now I'm an independent. I played football in high school in LA at Dorsey High and also at UCLA a long time ago. I remember I detested and despised our quarterback. I hated his guts, but I blocked for him because he delivered the passes that got the touchdowns made. They got the championship. All right? You don't have to like somebody to go for them. Now, that said, I detest and despise the current president. 50-some years ago, I was down here in Dover doing research for a DC think tank that I was interning for. I heard a commotion outside, and I went out, and there was John D. Stennis. There was Eastland. There was Fawless. That's the guy that stood in the doorway of Little Rock High School and said those young Negro, Black, Afro-American, African-American Black students, some of whom I have met in life, were not going in there. Bird was there, and they were introducing the new up-and-coming Dixiecrats, and I Dixiecrat. And I saw a young man with a ducktail looking back like he was back in 1950-something. And he said some of the most disgusting things I'd ever heard said about my people. He's in the White House right now. Now,
What? He said this man back in the day, I forget what year he mentioned, was saying the most disgusting things against Black people. He's in the White House right now. That's Jim Crow Joe. Why y'all think I call the man Jim Crow Joe instead of just Joe Biden? His history. You can talk a good game, but what you actually do shows who you are. Judge Joe Brown has been around 75 years, so he can tell you some things where people my age and younger can only read about them and depend on documentaries to tell us the truth. He's lived the truth, and he cannot stand Jim Crow Joe. Okay, so I'm going to need Black folks to wake the heck up. I'm just going to say it, wake the hell up.
To look deeply at what is actually going on. Let's take the forgiveness of the student loan thing. Sounds good, except when you back off any place in the rest of the world that you had a 4-year college degree, you would be firmly in the middle class. In the United States of America, the Labor Department has said the middle class makes, if you're just one person, $125,000 a year, and that is the cutoff point for any relief under this thing with the student loans. So when they're giving you relief, that is a testimony that something is wrong here because you're not making what you ought to make with your education. Meanwhile, let's back off. Was it wholeheartedly done, or is there another purpose involved? Well, if you are a bank or a financial institution, you no longer have to wait for these loans to be paid off in installments. You get all of your interest and a complete repayment on the obligation all at one time. You can discharge people in your loan collection departments. You don't have court costs and attorney fees to take people to court. You make a ball. Meanwhile, some people are happy, but their financial circumstances still haven't changed, and they're not in the middle class, even though they've got a 4-year degree. Why is that? Because the country is not dealing with what it ought to deal with, because computerization and industrial technology have made most working class people obsolete. So there are not enough jobs going around to enough people. So what we do is the same thing when we have a surplus in any kind of commodity, whether it is wheat, corn, cotton, or people. We do 3 things. We store the surplus. That's the jail cell instead of the grain silo. You have a subsidy of the would-be producer. That's the government check that people become too dependent upon. You pay the farmer ordinarily, say not to grow soy, and you cut back production. Well, the farmer doesn't grow soy, but in our case, with all the negatives on social media, entertainments, the kids bang out, drug out, crop out, get pregnant too early, too often, don't develop any vocational skills, any academic excellence. They have wrong ideation. They turn where they live into chaos-filled areas.
And that's what the Democrats do. Everywhere they rule, it turns into chaos, and they love chaos. Okay, they will show as much as they can, but they've only been able to show it once this year that I'm aware of. And I'm talking about the situation with that black lady, Sonia Massey, where she had the water and the white police officer who shot and unfortunately unalived her. And he should not have been an officer in the first place. He had too many problems, and he should be punished for what he did. He just got some issues that is not, he needs another, well, he's going to be in prison, hopefully. But what the Democrats do is they love chaos. And I know he said a lot of other things that don't have anything to do with what I'm about to say. But the point I'm making is the Demon Rats love chaos. They're going to show a white officer with a black person who was unarmed, and they're going to show that. They're going to dish out these student loans, that forgiveness that's not addressing the real problem. People don't make enough money. They love pandering. They love giving out things. But it sounds good in theory, but when you think about it on a different level, like look at it deeper, it does not work. It's like a Band-Aid on top of something that needs surgery. Okay, that is the problem with the Demon Rats and how they think. And a lot of times what they offer, they never implement. They say it to get votes. Remember that.
And third hand. So critical race theory is simply saying, as a legal philosophy, let's think not individual but institution, not particular persons but systems, in terms of the force and function of inequality in America. They ain't teaching no 5th grade students no daggum CRT. These white folk, for the most part, and Negroes too, who are against CRT, wouldn't know the difference between CRT and OPP. Right? And so critical race theory, I've taught it for years. It's a philosophically dense, theoretically propitious, very concentrated form of thought about the social structural inequities that prevail, that disallow certain communities to inherit goods and services for which they pay their precious tax dollars. So CRT is critical and necessary, but what they're trying to be against is the teaching of history in general. If you look at Ron DeSantis, what he did when he signed that anti-CRT bill was saying what? We don't want white students to be uncomfortable. Guess what, homie? Discomfort is the basis of true education. Unless you hear a Judge Joe Brown go against what you think is the commonsensical way, and he twisted with his homespun genius, you're going to get uncomfortable because he's spitting some truth into you that you don't want to deal with. But that will motivate you to think differently about your situation. We are not here to make you comfortable. We're here to tyrannize your comfort when it rests upon inequality and the refusal to acknowledge the humanity of the masses of people. So CRT ain't about darn trying to make white folk guilty. It's about holding to account what the judge said. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. These lack of character having politicians who refuse to abide by the same principles that they live by. Let us have the same insurance you got up on Capitol Hill. Let the masses of American citizens enjoy those privileges. So for me, it's about anti-education. It's about, look, they love history except when it comes to us. 15,000 books on Abraham Lincoln. Books on even Aaron Burr, who, as you know,
let me just stop you right here. First of all, CRT is horrible. Critical race theory, in a nutshell, it demonizes white people for the mistakes of their ancestors, white kids in this case, and black people feeling like they are the oppressed, and the other side, who doesn't look like them, they are the oppressors. And what we should do is learn from history, but don't demonize each other for some things that their ancestors may or may not have done. And he brought up Ron DeSantis. First of all, Ron DeSantis did not want that advanced. It was called Advanced American History, it was Advanced African American History course. It was labeled advanced. But what they did not tell you, and see, this is what the clefty lefties are very good at. They label something good. It sounds like a good name. But in actuality, when you look into it, it's the exact opposite of what they are labeling it. Or if it's not the exact opposite, they're indoctrinating something else into it as part of it, but that's not included in the name. So you don't get that from the name. You get that when you take part in the course. And that is what that Advanced African American History course in Florida was about. It had in it queer theory. It was teaching kids about alternative lifestyles and ways of being that go against Christianity. That's what it was doing. And it was a problem for a lot of parents. It was a problem for Governor DeSantis. And he was clear on that. But the clefty lefty media, who depends on people to just turn on the TV because the demon rats own media, you know that, right? So they made him look like he was a racist, made him look like he was a bad guy. And he just didn't want the queer theory in it. He was all good with the history of it, but take out the queer theory part of it. And also with the CRT, again, I just told you what that's really about, because the demon rats are about division and chaos and having people at each other like this. That's what they do. Why do you think they always show when there's a white officer who unalives an unarmed black person like it doesn't happen any other way? Now, that officer should be held accountable in that Sonia Massey case. Don't get me wrong and don't get me twisted. But why don't they show it in other ways where both the officer and the victim are the same ethnicity, or when the officer is black and the victim is white? You know what I mean? They only show it one way, and it gets black people in our emotions. We go run out into the streets and burn down the cities. Chaos. That's what the demon rats bring. They just love it like oxygen.
Examine the people that you have chosen to represent you, because they're not doing their job. Now, all that being said, we don't need to defund the police. We need to revise what police are about. They are supposed to be protecting and serving us. And then several things you have to take into context in American law. It has been held by the U.S. Supreme Court and the federal appellate courts over and over again. The police have no obligation to protect anyone except those people they actually have in custody. If in the process of stopping criminal activity, they protect you, that's incidental, because their primary business is to keep public peace, dignity, and order. So nobody's protecting you. Second Amendment is going out of the window sometimes. The police aren't there for you, so what are you supposed to do? That is a problem, and that's where we are right now. So somehow or another, along this line of thought, we have to say we have to take back our neighborhoods. They belong to us. We ought to be deeply ashamed that our children have run the parents and the adults out of their own houses. I'm not used to that. And I don't see why you should. Take control of where you live. You run off at the mouth all the time. Why don't you, by the way, go pull the coattail on your pastor? Say, Pastor, what's happened? I haven't heard you preach about sin and its wages in a long time. Somebody said, why don't you go to church much, Judge? I said, I haven't heard a sermon on sin and the wages in 30-some years. Yes. What are you doing? It's all about belief, not deeds. Well, somewhere along the line, somebody's got to say, oh, no, that's wrong. Can't do that. And I hollered a preacher 2 weeks ago. You know what he told me? Because we can't say that anymore. I said, why not? Because everybody get up and walk out the congregation.
And that's the problem right there. People, these preachers, pastors, say what people want to hear, those itching ears that the Bible talks about. They gather teachers unto themselves. A lot of times the reason you have all these mega preachers who are saying the wrong thing, they are not preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, is because the people there don't want God. They want to do what they want to do. So they gather preachers that are going to tell them what they want to hear. But a lot of what Judge Joe Brown is saying is so true. We're not hearing about sin, and that's wrong, and you shouldn't do that. We're getting tickling ears right now. And it's so many things going on in the world. It's not even about Democrat versus Republican. It's not even about that. It's not about that. It's about good versus evil. We've got a spiritual battle on our hands, left and right. We do. And we do need better policing. I do agree with Judge Joe Brown on that. We don't need to defund the police. We need to revise it. We need to improve it. But we do not need to defund it. It's too much crime going on. And then it looks like on the demon rat side, they want to protect the criminals. What about the victims? I mean, we should be protected. We're just minding our own business, and you want to just treat us so bad by not taking care of the criminal who actually did something wrong? Breaking into stores, stealing thousands of dollars of merchandise so that the store has to close and those people lose their jobs. And we wonder why a lot of companies and stores are leaving certain types of neighborhoods. We wonder that, don't we? See, we need to do something about that. Or we need to get it together. We need to turn to God. Ultimately, that's the issue. We need to turn to God. And once we do that, we'll hear correctly, hopefully surrender to God and try to hear from him and obey him and stick to the word of God. But a lot of people aren't going to do that. You've got those clefty lefties and demon rats and people who are actually brainwashed or bewitched by the propaganda media. They just believe whatever the news tells them. They just turn on the TV and be lazy and don't even look to see if they are actually being told the truth. That is lazy, and that is a problem. You all tell me what you think about what was said here today. I do like Judge Joe Brown. He is an independent, but he cannot stand the Democrat Party. I did another video with him recently talking about he can't stand the Democrats. He can't stand them. And I know Michael Eric Dyson, whatever his name is, the clefty lefty, he is somewhat of a race baiter. He is. I mean, I just get tired of people making it about someone being white. It's because they white. Even the Breakfast Club, they were like, at the end of the day, Joe Biden and Trump are still two white men. They both racist. That's what Charlemagne said. He said that. And this, of course, was when Biden was still in the race. That's what he actually said out of his mouth. Like he's saying, if you white, you're racist. That's wrong, Charlemagne. You're wrong. You are wrong for saying that. I'm telling you, you wrong. Anybody know how I can get in touch with him? Wrong, wrong, wrong. But anyway, that was wrong. That was wrong. So anyway, you all tell me what you think about that. What do you think about what Judge Joe Brown said? What do you think about what Mr. Dyson said? I mean, do you agree or disagree? And tell me why in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You all be blessed. Love God, these United States of America. And as I always say, march on, warriors.